Style archetypes have been around since the 1960s, as have I. Most of what you've heard about them since then is a narrowed down version of what they were always meant to be. It's incredibly easy to lose yourself inside a system that was built to find you. You've probably tried at least one. Maybe you went deep. Maybe you came out on the other side with a label and it sort of fit, made you feel comfortable, but your closet maybe still doesn't feel quite like you. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand what style archetypes actually are, where the popular systems came from, and what each one does well and leaves out, and how to use this framework the way it was originally intended as a tool for seeing yourself more clearly, not for sorting yourself into a box. This matters because the original framework was never about your box. It was about your whole person. When you understand that, the way you get dressed changes. We're going to move through three ideas: what Harriet McJimsey actually built, how the major adaptations work and where they diverge, and what it looks like to come back to the whole person approach she started with. That last piece is where your style archetype stops being a label and starts being something you can actually use. I've been inside this lineage long enough to know where each system shines and where it leaves women stranded. Let's start at the beginning. So, what are style archetypes really? Harriet McJimsey was a professor of textile and design. In 1963, she published a college textbook called Art in Clothing Selection, which was updated in 1973 as Art and Fashion in Clothing Selection. In this book, she mapped 6 style archetypes along a yin-yang spectrum: dramatic, natural, classic, romantic, gamin, and ingenue. You may recognize these names. Most people working in style today, or at least a lot of people on YouTube and everywhere else, are still using those names or some collection of including those names. So here's what gets dropped in almost every popular adaptation. McJimsey wasn't only doing body analysis, she was doing whole person reading. So her framework was fundamentally about congruence, matching the inner person, mannerisms, and essence along with the outer lines rather than just measuring a person's skeleton. So physical build and scale mattered, yes, but equally load-bearing were the person's mannerisms, voice, persona, and expressive quality, the way you move through the world, the way you carry yourself in a room. She also said that almost no one is a pure type. Most women draw from several archetypes, and the skill is in understanding the blend. Style archetypes were always a portrait of the whole person, not a caricature or a measurement of the body. One more piece. She used facial characteristics specifically to guide the lines and details that are worn near the face. Things like collar, neckline shape, jewelry, hair. So she understood that your face is where most people read you, so the details closest to it carry the most expressive weight. She also was looking at the facial features to select those details that are in harmony with the face. And that principle is still alive in some people's practices, and we'll come back to that. So David Kibbe is where most of the women that I talk to start, and a lot of them get stuck there. In 1987, he published his book Metamorphosis. He was building on McJimsey's types to create 13 style identities across 5 families. And what he did well was creating a rigorous, internally consistent system for understanding how your physical lines relate to clothing lines. For the right woman, it's clarifying, but almost nobody can find themselves in his system. And so many women that I see are stuck uh, in a hamster wheel of Facebook groups and YouTubes and going to different experts and taking pictures of themselves and drawing themselves. Anyway, what he changed, he moved to a single type verdict. So basically, however you add up in his system, that's your one single type. He also removed ingenue completely and shifted where romantic and gammon sit on the yin yang spectrum. Most importantly, though, is that moving away from the whole person read. He's primarily about your body's geometry. The inner life is largely absent. Now, I think if you go actually work with the man Kibbe, that might be different. Um, because I think he's very intuitive. He seems very intuitive about how he works with people. But if you're just trying to get the book or watch YouTubes and apply it, that's what I'm talking about. That's why women have come to me spending months or years on Kibbe forums and Kibbe Facebook groups, whatever, and they're still not sure where they fit. So John Kitchener has a different approach that stays much closer to Harriet McJimsey's. He kept the blending model where he's typing people by percentages. Also, Andrea Flammer is his mentee, I guess, his a person that is practicing within his framework. He added a seventh essence. It's he calls it angelic or ethereal, and that accounts for a quality that the original six hadn't fully captured. So Andrea Flaumer studied with him, and her work is a legitimate continuation of that lineage. She wrote a book. I can't remember now. I have the book. It's got a red cover. Anyway, what this branch does well is the percentage model that honors the fact that real women are complex. So a woman who's like 60% classic and 40% romantic is going to dress completely, well, not maybe completely, but very different from a woman who's 60% classic and 40% ethereal. So what it still leaves out is what we'll get to in the next section, which is the visual favorites or the aesthetic evidence that tells you not what type you are within categories, but what your version of your unique style archetype actually looks like. So this is the easier way to find your style archetype. Early in my practice, I worked with a woman I will call Susan because that's one of the anonymous names that I use. She came in curious about her Kibbe type, a little embarrassed even to ask. She had a Kitchener palette she already loved, and she had real questions about her body and how to dress it. I told her I hadn't cracked the Kibbe code yet, but I had something else. I sent her a body line and face analysis, which I still do those things, but they go by different names, and they're in my Discover Your Style DNA program. Uh, I gave her silhouette, her proportions, and specific guidance for the details that were going to work for her body. I also had an intuition about which Xylot archetype might fit. David Xylot's system is completely different from what we're talking about here. He's got 24 archetypes, but they're based mainly in color. So what happens next is, or what happened with Susan next, in her own words, she said that when she looked at herself in the mirror, individual parts stopped jumping out at her. What she saw was a pleasing whole. She started getting compliments before her wardrobe was even finished. She never got a Kibbe label, but she didn't need one. Here's what this story illustrates. Your technical style recommendations come from your body, your lines, your scale, your proportions, your, yeah, all the technical details. You get this gives you your silhouette, your hemlines, your structure, your style lines. Your vibe emerges from that and from what you love. So the images that you love, like the rooms you want to live in, the colors you keep going back to, seasons even, like not just color seasons, but like some people when they send me their pictures, like 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 of them will be autumn leaves. Uh, all this stuff is evidence that tells you what your style archetype actually is, your unique style archetype. So when you bring that all together, you stop needing a system to tell you who you are. You already know, and then you just have to find the clothes, which I admit is a challenge. So Carla Mathis is the branch of this style expert tree or whatever that I came from. She wrote The Triumph of Individual Style back in the 90s, and her work has shaped the whole industry as well as what I do. She developed what she calls design characters. So it's like archetypes, but there's a lot more of them. And it's a vocabulary for the qualities an outfit can carry. And she has a principle called related character, which simply means that the elements of a look shouldn't clash internally. It should look like the same character is wearing all those pieces. But to find the woman's actual archetype, Carla's not going to sort her into a type. She's going to look at her visual favorites, like what I do, the images that she's drawn to, which is the aesthetic evidence. And that's exactly what I do with the essential aesthetic images, which is inside of signature style foundations. And then the facial features also come back in. Um, Yeah, McJimsey originally used those to guide the lines and details worn near the face. And that is exactly what clients receive when they get their accessories style guide from me. And that is part of my Discover Your Style DNA year-long program. You might be someone who has thought through Kibbe or gotten a palette from John Kitchener or read the book by Carla or the book by Andrea Flaumer or another system entirely. Maybe you understand the framework intellectually, but shopping and getting dressed still isn't easy. This is a conversation I would love to have with you. In a free style system synthesis call, we can look at what you already know about yourself and figure out what's missing. Most of the time, it's not more information, it's a clearer picture of you specifically and why you specifically matter in the context of what choosing what of choosing what to wear. So if that sounds like where you are right now, the link to book that is on my website, signaturestylesystems.com, or in the show description below this episode. Understanding your style archetype is a whole person reading, not a body typing exercise. And that's the most effective way to develop your signature style. Think of what we covered today as tools, not a checklist. The history gives you context, and the adaptation gives you discernment. Then the original method gives you permission to stop hunting for the right label and just start looking at the actual evidence of who you are. This week, try this. Pull 3 to 5 images that you love, not of people who look like you, but any visual that stops you. It could be art, it could be a room, a photograph, and then start looking for the things that these images have in common. That's the beginning of your aesthetic evidence, and it's more useful than any type test you will find online. And let's meet back here again real soon.